So we're glad you're here. Let's take a moment to turn within and get grounded and centered here in this space. And take a deep breath and settle in right where you are. And take a moment to just be present in this moment. For we recognize that it's in this present moment that we can be aware and are aware that there is one power and presence, one love, one light, one truth, one source and substance of all of our being, and that is God, Spirit, life, source, whatever name we would like to give it. And truly, it is in this presence that we live, and it in us, as light and life, peace and power, poise, joy, happiness, health, wholeness, all these many, many, many gifts of life find their expression in us right here and right now. And so in this time together this morning, we allow ourselves to rest and be present, to celebrate life, to celebrate love, celebrate each other, no matter where we are. Here in the space where I am, wherever you are, out there online, whenever you are, whether it's live today or at some future point where you're watching the replay. Right where we are, we know we are loved. And we are love expressing. And so we celebrate that right now as we go into this time together. We celebrate the gift of the Christ, the divine idea of us, in us all, finding its birth and expression through us right here and right now. We breathe it in and allow the awareness to rise up in us. And so we take this time to celebrate it, to celebrate each other, knowing we are truly connected wherever we are, whenever we are. And so with gratitude, we go forth into this time, celebrating each other, celebrating life. And so we let it be. And so it is. So it is. So we're so glad that you were all here. And so we're going to take some time here to I wanted to start this morning just by expressing my gratitude, and my gratitude for all of you and for everybody here in this space and everybody online, just my gratitude for the year. I mean, we are kind of wrapping up the year. You know, we take the time, we make a point at the end of the year to kind of look back at the year before, and we're beginning to wrap this year up. This will be the final service of 2022. Next Sunday, we'll be back for 2023 on January 1st, starting the year, kind of doing our reviewing our intentions from the previous year with a burning bowl ceremony and setting intentions for the coming year. So we invite you to join us for that. That'll be happening next Sunday. In addition, I just wanted to stop and be grateful for everything that's happened this past year. I'm grateful for the learning and the growth, grateful for the opportunities I've had to be here and celebrate and support the Scottsdale Centers for Spiritual Living and for all the support I've received. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all of you online who've reached out to me from time to time and who I've talked to. So I just wanted to start with that because that's important. And it's one of the pieces of the puzzle for me as we get into Christmas Day and meanings around it and all that. For me, it's very much it's very much about gratitude. It's about giving and receiving. It's about the birth of love and joy, the birth of peace, the birth of this Christ idea, the Christ consciousness in each and every one of us. Because as I was going through and reading a lot of what our founder for this Centers of Spiritual Living, Ernest Holmes, had to write about this, about Christmas Day, and about Jesus and the teachings of Jesus and the Christ consciousness and the Christ idea. He has a lot to say. So I'm going to be reading quite a few quotes from him today, and I will give you the kind of the page references and all that for those of you who would like to go look it up. As we go through this, I'll be doing some reading and making some comments and sharing some of my thoughts about what all this is, and not just the ideas and the concepts around it, but how do we go about embodying many of these ideas? How do we go about the process of living in this presence? So let's start with this. I have a quote here. I have the page apart. And I'm reading from The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. It's on page 366 in the chapter called Finding the Christ. And Ernest has this to say. He says, "We must not look afar to see the Christ, for he is ever near at hand. He is always within us. To the individual, there can never be any more power, truth, or life unless he is able to recognize it. Jesus stands alone as a man who knew himself and was cognizant of his relationship to the perfect whole. In the ecstasy of self-realization, he proclaimed the truth to be working through him. He proclaimed the truth to be working through him." So what a wonderful idea. To know that in this moment, in this presence, at that time, and Jesus himself said that he was here to show the way. He didn't hold himself as something unique. He held himself as an example for all of us. So as we go through this today, just remember that it's about the example that he set for each of us to live and to express. Ernest goes on to write, "Thou art the center and circumference of my life, the beginningless and endless part of me, the eternal reality of me, the everlasting power within me, the eternal good working through me, the infinite love impelling me, the limitless peace and calm within me, the perfect life living through and in me, the joy of the soul and the light of the Spirit illumining me. O Lord God, eternal and forever blessed, thou art my whole being." So for me, this is very much about learning to walk in this space, walk in this life, wholly expecting the spirit of life, love, truth, God to greet me at every turn. To recognize that its expression is always seeking to move through me. And the only thing that gets in the way of that is me. My own ideas about how limited I may be, or how lacking I may be, or how I come up short on it. All that stuff, all those stories we tell ourselves about how we're not enough. And we do. I do. And I'm getting better about it every day. Better about recognizing that I'm worth it, that that I'm good enough, that I'm worthy of having more, that I can express more and experience more. I do real good with health. I maybe get sick once a year, maybe. I'm working on that one. But that's one thing I know I'm really, really good. So can I apply that across every aspect of my life? Working on it, getting better about it. You know, it's like every day. It was a great little affirmation somebody threw at me years ago. I'd say, well, how are you? And he'd say, every day I'm getting better and better. Every day I'm getting better and better. And he meant it. So I'll hand that one to you for your consideration. You see, for me, and I remember reading it somewhere, and it's probably in this chapter, Ernest Holmes wrote, and I'm going to paraphrase it. If Jesus is not a human being who became and manifested the Christ idea, the Christ consciousness, much of his message is empty because he managed to live it. If we assume that Jesus is a man who manifested the Christ idea, who manifested the fullness of the divine idea of who and what we are, then the message is magnificent. Then the message is inspirational for me. It says, hey, this is something I can become. This is not only something I can become, something that I am, that I can reveal as the expression of me. It is something I can aspire to and something I can be inspired by, right? Because to be inspired by something is to understand that it's possible for me. I find it more challenging to be inspired by something that I don't hold to be as possible for me. You see, I have to be able to reach for it. I have to be able to make steps towards it. Maybe I don't make it all the way, but at least I can make progress. And I think that's what we are invited to. That's what we're invited to be. We're invited to become by Jesus' message. Time and time again, we find him teaching us about forgiveness, teaching us about love. It's like when he was asked by the Pharisees, well, what is the greatest, what's the greatest commandment, right? And he says, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like unto it, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. And it's all about love. It's all about love and living love, being love, expressing love, experiencing love. It's all that stuff. And it's not just that romantic, fluffy love or puppy love. And that's all part of it, sure. But it's greater than that. It's that sense of divine love and expression and experience that says, hey, we're all in this together. Embracing that idea that Ram Dass gave us that, we're all walking each other home, right? We're all walking each other back, side by side, hand in hand, walking into a new life, a new expression, a new experience. Because that can be scary, can't it? That can be real scary. Having to let go a little bit back here and say, this has all been very, very comfortable. My life is very ordered. I get up and I do this and I eat this and I do this and I go and do that, and day after day after day, over and over again. And if something changes, oh my, right? But it's okay. See, because that change is growth. That change says, I'm open to something new. Right? It's like I was given something, you're talking about change. I was given something by a minister way back, in my early student days, Dr. Leo Fishbeck in Glendale, California. Wonderful man, great teacher. And I was in a class with him. He was teaching, And he said, look, you need to start giving the universe messages that you're ready to change. He says, change those things, start changing the things that you do automatically. He says, you probably, when you put your shoes and socks on, he says, you probably do one of two things. You put on both socks and then both shoes, or you put on sock and a shoe and sock and a shoe. He says, pay attention, change it up. He says, if you have to get up and go out and drive to work, you probably drive the same way every day, make the same stops, go through the drive-through coffee or whatever on your way every day. Same thing every day. Change it up. Go a different route. He says, if you shave, you probably shave the same pattern every day. Change it up. Instead of starting over here on the right, start on the left. Or start down here. You see, because we start becoming comfortable with the idea of change. Change is growth, right? Change opens us to the opportunity to learn and grow, to become different, to evolve, to embrace more of who we are. It loosens up our attachments to the way things have always been. No longer am I walking through life just doing the same thing the same way every day, every moment, just because that's the way I've always done it. And how often do we do that? Yes, I do it, of course. And do I practice these little things? Absolutely. When I notice myself becoming too comfortable with the way things are, I start shaking things up. I start making little changes about how I go through life. Because I have to be comfortable. I want to become more comfortable with change than I am with my comfort. There is some wisdom in becoming a little uncomfortable and stretching just a little bit. Because if we take the time to be really honest about ourselves, and there are examples of this even in the life of Jesus as we look at it, our greatest growth and unfoldment tends to come from the more challenging times in our lives. As much as sometimes we don't like to say that. I'm open to being different. I'm just going to put my vote in right now and say, look, I'm open to massive change for the good in an easy and effortless way. Not effort. Well, it doesn't have to be completely effortless. But I'm open to it being different. I'm open to it being an easier flow because life will be to us, correct, as we are to it. As we approach it, it will show up for us the way we approach it and the way we expect it to be. So the stories that we tell ourselves about life will inevitably show up. We tell them frequently enough. That's why affirmations work. That's why prayer works. It's just we're talking to us. We're talking to ourselves and the universe is saying yes. We're being grateful for everything that we have in our lives and for those things that we expect in advance. Because even Jesus, and I don't know where it is, it just occurs to me, that frequently when we hear Jesus going into prayer in the four Gospels, he gives thanks first. He says, thank you, Father, for I know thou hearest me always. Were the first words out. So he's being grateful first. Knowing that it's already done. Knowing that there is a divine life and love and wisdom that's always listening and saying yes to the depth of our conviction and knowing about the truth of what life is. Let's go back to Ernest and see what he has to say. On page 3, bottom of page 369 in the Science of Mind, Ernest goes on to write, Yes. This is the close of the chapter on finding the Christ. Ernest Holmes writes, "The Christ is always triumphant, is ever a victor, is never defeated, needs no champion. The Christ places his hand in the outstretched hand of the universe and walks unafraid through life." And he goes on to write a little verse. Ernest loved writing verse. "Through the long night watches his hand clasps mine. At the break of dawn his hand clasps mine. In the daytime of work and endeavor, from eternity to eternity his hand clasps mine. When time shall have passed, when eternities shall be strewn about like falling petals, and space and worlds shall be swallowed up in everlasting blessedness, his hand will clasp mine." And then, "We are never left without a witness of the eternal, and in our greatest moments, in those flash-like visions of mystic grandeur, we know that we are made of eternal stuff, fashioned after a divine pattern." And to me, that's the point. Christmas Day, we celebrate the birth of Jesus, the master teacher. More importantly for me is the example that he set. More importantly for me is the pattern that he revealed for us to aspire to and to embrace. More importantly for me is to look at what he taught more so than what others said about him and said about what he taught. And there's plenty of that. There's a lot of it, and a lot of wisdom and a lot of great stuff. But what's important to me is, what can I take of what he taught and the example that he set? What can I take of all of that and live in my life? How accepting can I be of others? How much of all of what life is, in all of it, the broad spectrum, can I look at it and say, this is what life is? The dark, the light, the good, the bad, all of it. To look at it without judgment and say, yeah, we're working our way back home. Yeah, we're doing our best. And what can I do in my little section of this great big pool of humanity, this great big pool of spiritual seekers, and we all are, to one degree or another. How can I participate in my own little way, throwing my little pebbles into the pool of consciousness to make a difference? How many ripples can I make today that will help somebody else learn and grow along with me? Because it is ultimately, I can manage my own consciousness. That's it. I can't manage anybody else's. Now I can work in the great collective to kind of help clean up the mess, right? I can manage my side of the street, try to keep my side clean up all the clutter, sweep away all the little thoughts of lack and limitation. Look out into the world and say, okay, how much more light can I bring? How much more love can I bring? How much more celebration can I bring to what's going on around here? Because there's lots to celebrate if I keep looking for it. And sure, there are going to be times when I mourn, and there are going to be times when I'm sad, and there are going to be times when I have to grieve a little bit over those things that I'm letting go. And Lord knows there are people out there in the world today who are having a hard time, as there are each and every day. And when we see them, when we sense them, we can say a little prayer for them, reach out to them. Try every day to just work out and share a little bit more love. Be a little bit more light. Because that's what the master teacher would have us do. That's what those who are living a better life around us are doing. Because as I'm traveling up the mountain, so to speak, that metaphorical mountain of growth, right? As I'm traveling up that, I'm not doing it alone. And I have a certain responsibility to, as I'm reaching up with one hand, to reach back with another and say, you know what? If you need some help, I'm here. If you want a little assist, grab on. Can't do it for you, but I can point the way, right? I can kind of clear the road a little bit, maybe make it a little bit easier. That's what I can do. Do what I can to live my life as an example for somebody. There's a great deal of work to be done. And it is my hope that as I've walked through life and, to make it a little bit better for folks. And I think that's true for most people. In places like this and others all around the world, whether it's Centers for Spiritual Living or the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church, Islam, whoever, we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's to make the world a better place. So whether it's here or wherever you are or wherever you're going to be later today, let's seek to love just a little bit more, to share a little bit more light, to have a little bit more joy, laugh a little bit, hug a little bit. If there's somebody out there you know of that may be alone, reach out, make a phone call, send a text message. That's what we can do. Reach out and connect. We spent 2 years being disconnected. It's time to reconnect. It's time to be connected again. To get out in the world, get face to face, and give somebody a hug. Because that's what we can do. So let's take this into prayer this morning a little bit as we wrap it up. It's just be a little short today, just because it was spontaneous, and we're just going to do this thing. All right. So let's take a little moment to take this into prayer. And so we begin by recognizing that there is only one power and presence, and that is God, by whatever name. And it is in this that we find our life, find our livingness, find love. And it operates in, through, and around each and every one of us right here and right now, whether you're here in the space, out there in internet land, or now or later, whenever. There's no time and space in this thing called life. And so we breathe it in, and we let it be. We get out of our own way. As Emerson says, we get our bloated nothingness out of the divine circuits right now. And remember that we are living love. That this love and light and truth is what we are right here, right now. And so I speak this word for myself and for anybody here in the space now or later on, anybody out there in internet land. I speak this word for you, knowing that all is well, that life is good and very good. growing and expanding and expressing itself in ever more wonderful ways, with wisdom and whimsy and magic and magnificence at every turn. I look up and around and I see the spark and the sparkle of life as it expresses. And I feel the smile spread out on my face. Because the good that I have always expected is right here with me now. And I celebrate it, whether that good is health or wholeness, prosperity or abundance, love, laughter, whatever it is, I give it a name and call it good. And any doubt or uncertainty that might creep up in this moment is simply swept aside, saying, no, right now I am celebrating life. Right now I am celebrating love. Right now I celebrate the good that is in my life. And not only that good, but the seeds that I've planted already of good that is yet to come, those seeds are growing and sprouting even as I speak. And so I know and accept and celebrate these blessings for each and every one here, no matter where you are. And so with gratitude, we go forward from this time, this space, this place, knowing that all is well, that life is good and very good as each and every one of us. And so we let it be. And so it is.